Hello and welcome to your weekly tarot forecast for the week of August 18th through the 24th. I am Michelle Shea Walker, your spiritual advisor, here to give you your glass half full perspective on the week ahead. If you are a paid subscriber or if you tipped your reader this week, stick around until the end to see if you won the personalized reading. And I am super excited about this week's energy because I get a little energy preview in my own life about a week before stuff happens in the astrology. So I kind of get to my calendar and I'm like, oh, that's what I've been feeling. And what I've been feeling recently, build to momentum, is Virgo season. So I actually have no planets in Virgo in my chart. It resides in my 8th house, though. So it's the house of transformation. So every time I come to Virgo season, I forget how much I enjoy this energy, but it's just like juicy, rejuvenating, back to school, get organized energy. And honestly, I'm digging it. So if you are feeling the beginnings of that trickle in, you might have found that you feel called to organize your home or your office space. You might feel called to do a little renovation with your look, your appearance, get yourself tidied up, go a little back to school energy. It very much is the energy that I always enjoyed, which is that sort of mythical daydream that I believe we all had as children, that we would return from summer vacation transformed and our life would be completely different coming back in on Virgo season. And I'm still okay with that delusion. So if you're feeling that, it's a good time for transformation, especially if you, like me, are an Aquarius rising and Virgo is in your 8th house. But it's definitely a good time to get yourself organized and feel that sort of fresh start, crisp fall energy, regardless of where you are. If you are in the Southern Hemisphere, even better, because you get that sort of like spring cleaning vibe. So whatever it is that you're feeling, it's a good time to hit the reset button and get organized about where you're headed next. So that is a little preview of what we're going to be talking about this week. I also want to point out that there's a new moon that's also occurring in Virgo. So that's going to affect the energy. And we have some very interesting cards, but for the most part, we are very much in control of the energy of the week ahead. And I'll get to why I say that in just a bit. So if you're new here, I deal with tarot cards and astrology as we go through the day-by-day forecast of the week ahead. If you're ever interested in learning more about your own personal astrology, I offer one-on-one star readings. So if you want me to go through your natal chart and upcoming transits and how they're going to affect you personally, you can find out more about that at michelleshayWalker.com. I will try to put a link below for that and my other reading services. And if you ever want to get a not lesser version, but an abbreviated version of those personalized readings, you can become a paid subscriber on Substack, or you can tip your reader and be entered in the drawing at the end of each of these weekly forecast videos for the chance to win a personal reading drawing. So all of that said, let's dive in. Monday, we have I lied. I'm going a little ahead of myself. That's next week. Monday, we have Mercury sextile Mars. So Mercury is the planet of communication. Mars is the planet of passion. And they're coming together in a very supportive energy. If you've been around, I usually like to say the sextiles are those two energies coming together, having a cup of tea, conspiring how they can support one another. So your communication, your passions are in cahoots on Monday. And that's starting in the wee morning hours Central Standard Time in America. It's 2:32 a.m. So while you're sleeping, if you're in that area of the world, or do the translations how it affects you, there's definitely going to be an energy of communication and passion can come together. Now, passion can cover several things. It can be that you're passionately communicating a love to someone. It could be that you're passionately communicating a creative project. Or it could be that you're having some passionate, fiery opinions that might be a little combative. So know that just because these two energies are being supportive of one another doesn't mean that we don't have to sort of be mindful of how we convey our message to the outside world. So remember that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Even if you are conveying something that you passionately want to change in the world, look at what the positive aspects of things and the change you're moving towards is and communicate those messages rather than trying to just complain about what's going wrong. So be passionate about it, but be passionate about the change that you want to see rather than the things that are pissing you off, because that is sometimes what happens with Mars energy is we can get caught up in that anger. So don't get caught up in the anger, get caught up in the passion. So I've got a nose itch that's happening, which usually means that someone really needed to hear that message, but especially that there's someone listening to this message that's thinking about a particular communication that they want to have, communication passion-wise that they want to have. Maybe you want to tell someone your feelings, maybe you want to tell someone your opinions, whatever it is. I say again, follow that thread, but listen to the fact that you want to catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So that's the energy of the astrology. We do also have the moon moving into Cancer in the afternoon hours, Central Standard Time, 2:05 p.m. So moon into Cancer can be a more emotional energy. If you are the type of person that doesn't like to tap into your emotions, it might be a good day to do that. Talk to the water signs in your world about scheduling a cry or listening to sad songs to be able to purge some emotions, and they can give you some good recommendations there. But as a Cancer sun, I recommend that when the moon is in Cancer, you get in touch with your feelings. And if you have a Cancer moon, you might find that you're even more likely to communicate your feelings during the moon in Cancer, because it's like those emotions that are normally there as your baseline are just overflowing and come out of you a little more naturally. So those are just things to be aware of. The card that we have for Monday is the Death card reversed. Now, this is the only major arcana card in our entire week, which is why I said at the beginning in the preamble that we have a lot of control over the energy that's unfolding this week. It's a lot about our own free will and our own choices. It's not that it's not about that when the major arcana shows up, but when the major arcana shows up, it's a little more about the fate that we're encountering, like where our path is being directed by the universe. And Monday's energy is about a rebirth, especially with it being a reversed death card. So this is really about focusing on that fresh start energy that I spoke of. We're not quite to Virgo season on Monday, but we're already feeling that energy of wanting to hit the reset button, of wanting to move forward into another chapter in a way that feels transformed. So again, eighth house concepts, death and rebirth, transformation. Even if you're not an Aquarius rising and Virgo energy is not going to be affecting that area of your chart, look at what's in your eighth house. And if you're new here and you haven't heard this before, there are a couple different ways to figure out the houses. I really try to make it simplified with whole house calculations. You can figure them out by actually having an astrology calculator calculate your whole chart and looking at where everything falls. I really like to keep it simple and say that your rising sign is house 1. So if you know what your rising sign is, then you can just count around the calendar year to all the other zodiac signs to figure out the numbers for all of those other signs. And what that does to help you translate these readings is anytime you hear any sign, there was a police siren that just happened outside. So someone pay attention because that was important. Anytime you hear any of the signs in a reading, regardless of what they're doing, what planets they're occurring in, any of those things, the energy that we discuss is going to be affecting that house or that area of your life when that transit happens. So when you watch mass readings online, like I do, or like a lot of people do on Instagram, when they go through and break down each sign and they tell you what area of your life certain things are going to affect, they're going based on the houses. So they're really interpreting based on if your rising sign is that sign. However, if you don't know your rising sign, sun sign is a good placeholder. But if you do know your rising sign, it'll probably hit home a lot harder because it is the actual house that you're finding. So with that in mind, anytime I say a sign, but particularly this week, we got a lot of Virgo energy coming up. Look at what house Virgo is in. So find your rising sign. That's house 1. Example, I'm an Aquarius rising. Aquarius is 1. The next sign in the calendar year is Pisces. Pisces is my 2nd house. The next sign is Aries. Aries is my 3rd house, and so on and so forth. So now every time I know that I hear Aries, I know it's going to be affecting my 3rd house. Whereas Virgo is in my 8th house, so it's going to be affecting that energy of death and transformation. So I want you to, in this case, rather than listening to the signs that I'm saying, look at what is in your 8th house, because death and transformation is the card on Monday. If you have Cancer in the 8th house, or let's see, what are Mercury and Mars in? Because those are the planets that are moving. Mercury is in Leo, Mars is in Virgo. So Cancer, Virgo, and Leo, there's actually astrology that could be affecting your 8th house if that's what you find in that area. Otherwise, look at what's in your 8th house, because something about Monday, according to the card, is about death and transformation. So you might want to sort of embody the energy of the zodiac sign that you find in your 8th house to help this transition, to help this transformation, and to help focus your energy where it is that you're finding a rebirth. So I know we got a little heady on the astrology there. I hope you're still with me. If that means nothing to you, or if you don't know your rising sign, that's okay. Monday is about a rebirth. You decide where that rebirth is. So Tuesday, we move into the astrology of the sun trine Chiron. So trine is lucky. It's a supportive energy, kind of like the sextiles, getting together and have a cup of tea, but it's a little, in my mind, more magical. Like, it's almost like sextiles, what we talked about with Mercury and Mars on Monday, are co-conspirators of the energy. Whereas trines are very easy energy where the planets are coming together and it feels like they're just naturally and magically supporting one another. And it gets a little luckier in those areas of your life. So in this case, the sun trine Chiron means that the sun, our sense of self, our identity, and Chiron, the sense of our wounded healer that we're trying to kind of make peace with from our past, from ourself, from our dark side, are coming together in a really lucky way. So if you've done the work in healing, if you are really comfortable with your wounded healer and you are okay with diving deep into your wounds and how to heal them and doing the practices that you need to for your own self-care, for your own transformation, you will find on Tuesday that you've kind of integrated parts of these wounded self areas. Because a lot of times with our wounds, we kind of try and separate ourselves from them because they feel traumatic. But when we start to examine them and do the work and the somatics and whatever it is that we need to do to make peace with what's happened to us, we then can let them be a part of our identity without being hindered by them or triggered by them. They just are a part of your makeup. And they're not an excuse for being lesser or feeling lesser or being traumatized or triggered. They just are a part of your story. So that is possible on Tuesday with this trine, especially if you're doing the work. So take care of your inner wounded healer, take care of your inner child during Tuesday. And the card that we have coming up with that energy is the 2 of Cups reversed. So I actually am getting a hit off of this card that it's an internal energy, which is why it's coming through reversed. And it's the energy of you meeting up with a part of your internal self that you're making peace with, that you're making friends with. So again, this feels very much like having a little meeting with your inner child, having a little meeting with the parts of yourself that feel a little wounded, the areas of your life that you feel like are a little more traumatic, and letting your current self be sort of a soothing balm and a healing presence for your past self that needed that energy. So it's a good day for some inner child meditation or some meditation where you visualize actually meeting up, kind of like this card depicts, with a past version of yourself that needs a little extra love. And maybe even do something as simple as visualize you now in a more healed and aligned state, giving that version of yourself a hug or wrapping them up in protective energy. And you will find that that ripples forward into the future by simply doing that, whether it be a magical thing or psychological thing, I don't care. It is either a magical practice that you're doing something witchy, or it's psychology, that visualization just triggers something within you that heals, that then feels like it now affects your present life. Either way, it works. So give your past self some love on this Tuesday. And again, it's turned inward. This is an internal work. If you want to involve therapeutic practices, readers, healers, coaches, therapists, feel free to do so. But this is about you meeting up with you and being okay with all parts of yourself. Moving into Wednesday. Wednesday, we have the moon moving into Leo. So again, if you have a moon in Leo, you might find that you're more likely to communicate your emotions. If you don't, moon in Leo can be a little more theatrical with their emotions. Some might say dramatic, but it doesn't always have to be that way. So you might find that those kind of kick up to a higher octave. But again, I encourage you to communicate, to cleanse, to have a catharsis with your emotions. Leo can also be a little bit theatrical and like a creative practice. So it might be a good day to actually like create art from your emotions. So whatever that is, songwriting, prose writing, art, music, feel free to use that energy to your advantage. The card that we have is the Knight of Wands reversed. Now, the Knight of Wands can be a pretty theatrical energy. It's a very flamboyant and charming energy, regardless of gender. It doesn't have to be masculine or feminine, but it's definitely about either becoming a very charming theatrical part of yourself or meeting a very charming and theatrical and adventurous person. Because it is reversed, I'm more likely to lean towards this is your internal Knight of Wands coming forward. So allow yourself to follow your curiosity is the thing that I want to say for this card. So with the Moon in Leo telling you to get creative or artistic or dramatic with your emotions, follow your curiosity, follow your passion, and see where that thread leads you. So all of our cards have been reversed thus far, and we're going to continue this trend a little bit, but I want to kind of pause and say that this can almost feel like we're wrapping up loose ends and kind of preparing for this next chapter as we move towards Virgo season. So again, this is kind of a get yourself organized energy even before we hit the sun in Virgo, because it's like we want to organize the messier parts of our internal state to then be okay and ready to organize our external life when Virgo season hits. So know that we're doing a lot of internal work at the start of the week. We are, giving ourselves a rebirth energy. We're meeting up with the wounded parts of ourselves and giving them love. We are learning to express our emotions in theatrical, dramatic, and beautiful ways. And then we're moving into Thursday, which is quieter, the astrology, but the card is the Ten of Swords reversed. Now, this is a very daunting card to see whenever it comes up in a reading. Oh, my nose is still itching again. So there's definitely other parties involved in this that you're thinking of while I talk about these energies. But this is an energy of rock bottom. And the thing that I actually love about this card is the message of rock bottom is you can't sink any lower than whatever it is that you're currently finding yourself in. So the only option that you have is being able to push back up. And just like you dive to the bottom of the pool or sink to the bottom of the pool and find that foundation, it's easier to shoot yourself up to the surface. That's what the Ten of Swords energy is. It's like you have no more left to go down. So when you're ready, you can push up and you can actually shoot yourself up to the surface that much faster. But the key phrase is when you're ready, because sometimes we can get in this energy and we can just wallow in it. So as you see on this card, it's a person like doom scrolling on their phone and just feeling hopeless. And we all know that feeling when we get into those moments where we might kind of just wallow in those emotions and let ourselves feel stuck there. If this is a depression for you that you're going through, I did an advice column last week that was about dealing with listlessness and suicidal ideations. So you might check that out in the essays and advice section of my Substack, because it doesn't go out in all the emails. It goes out to some people, but you might have to check in your profile to turn those on if you want to get them in your email. But it has my favorite tips for how to get out of a state like this and remotivate yourself slowly and gently back into action in the outside world. So again, if you don't feel like you're quite ready to push off the bottom of the pool and go to the surface, check that out, take some of those steps, be gentle with yourself, and you will regain that sense of motivation, because this is going to be really vital moving into this next chapter of this new fresh Virgo energy that we're moving into. So give yourself that space on Thursday to examine where you've hit rock bottom, where rock bottom doesn't necessarily have to be like a depression or an addiction. It could be that you're just done dealing with certain energies. And when you recognize that you've hit that rock bottom, you can then make the choice to change your situation, to shoot back up to the surface, and to make something better for yourself. That is Thursday. Friday, we move into Sun into Virgo energy, which again feels really good to my cells. It's an opportunity to reinvent. It's definitely an opportunity to reorganize your life and to really get productive once you feel organized. So reorganize your home space, give it a little fresh smudging, or spray some vinegar and water around in the air to kind of clear the energy, open up the windows if you can. There's an energy of moving into the next chapter and wanting to feel organized and prepared for it. And it's school supplies energy. It's like, go get your back to school outfit ready, get your pencils sharpened, get your notebooks purchased, whatever that metaphor means to you, and get really organized and clear about where you're headed and that you have all the tools that you need. The card for the day is our first upright card of the week, which automatically I was like, yes, Virgo season, upright, we're ready for movement forward. However, the card is the Five of Swords. So while it is an upright energy and we're seeing a little more movement and a little less internal reflection, it is still a card of a little bit of pause and action, because it's, where do you want to give up fighting for something that's not worth the fight, is the message of the Five of Swords. So I think that as the sun moves into Virgo, or maybe even just before it moves into Virgo, because it's 3:34 in the afternoon that happens, you might find that, kind of similar to our Ten of Swords energy the day before, where you've hit your limit on something, there's something that you've been fighting either for or about that's not worth your energy. And that's going to be the last element of clearing out the unnecessary and giving a little purge and getting organized before we move into Virgo season and solidify that. The other energy that's happening on Friday astrologically in the evening hours, 9:28 p.m. Central Standard Time, is Venus square Chiron. So we talked about Chiron earlier. It's our wounded healer. Venus is the planet of love and beauty and creativity, and it's square. So a square is a harsher angle. It's a little more the two energies butting up against one another. So they're kind of, the thing that I'm getting from this is actually like, this might be a day that it's a little harder to reconcile the beauty of your wounded side. And I think that that's okay. Like, we're allowed to have ebbs and flows in that energy. It's in the evening that it's happening for most of us. So I would say just be gentle with yourself in the evening. I think sometimes Virgo season energy can get a little caught up in the perfectionism of things. So it might be that when the sun moved into Virgo, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have to be perfect. I don't want to have anything to do with this wounded part of myself. I want everything to be beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. And those two energies are kind of combating one another. So allow yourself to sit with it. Allow yourself to have peace with the fact that it's going to be an ebb and flow of making peace with all sides of yourselves and integrating yourself fully. And maybe just take a little break for some self-care on Friday evening, because you're going to want to rest up for the energy of Virgo season. As we move into Saturday, we have the moon moving into Virgo in the wee morning hours. So for some, towards the West Coast, it might even be the evening hours on Friday. It's 12:24 a.m. on Central Standard Time. And then we also have the Virgo new moon happening about 40 minutes after that. So at 1 a.m. Central Standard Time, again, wee morning hours or late evening hours on Friday. So right after Virgo moves in, the sun moves into Virgo, we have the Virgo new moon. And new moons are always a great time for new and fresh manifestations. So this is like, you're setting the intentions for that back to school energy. You're wanting to know who you want to be and what you want to do and what classes you want to take, and whatever those metaphors are that you want to apply to your real life. How are you going to make that list of things that are being called into your world? And this could be stories of success. It could be physical objects. It could be relationships. However, why did I not mark that down if that's the case? I think next month is when our eclipse season begins. Yes. Okay. So we're still free of an eclipse to my knowledge, unless I forgot to note it. So if I did forget to note it, I will put that in all caps in the description and say, wait, it's an eclipse. Forget what I said. If it's not an eclipse, it's still a good energy for manifesting. When we move into eclipse season next month, we want to kind of like chill out on the manifestations because they can get a little funky. When you manifest on an eclipse new moon, it tends to be kind of a be careful what you wish for energy. Like if you're not really specific in your alignment with what it is you're trying to call in, you can call some stuff in that's almost what you wanted, but not quite. And it just feels weird and off. But then you're like, but I asked for this, but why doesn't it feel good? And that can happen during eclipse season. So when we move into eclipse season, take a break on the manifesting for the new moons. This one, I believe, according to my notes, is still safe. So give yourself some time to make those last manifestations before we move into eclipse season and get clear on what it is that you want to call into your life over the next 6 months, 9 months, a year, and especially with whatever Virgo is in your chart, whatever house Virgo falls in, that's going to be a really good area, primed for transformation, primed for this new fresh energy. So you can definitely use your magic in that way as well. Saturday's card is a 7 of Wands reversed. So this is very much energy of like, don't let the outside world's opinions or even voices and things that they're telling you affect what it is that you're trying to call into your life with these manifestations. Because this is a card of being sort of like having a little bit of visibility, whether it be within your inner circle, your family, or within the world, and having a lot of people throwing their opinions at you unnecessarily. So this is very comparable to sort of like online trolling energy, where if you get a little bit of visibility online, suddenly your comments are flooded by people that don't even know you, that want to tell you how to live. And that's the metaphor that we're applying to this card, whether that's actually what's happening for you or it's on a smaller scale. Remember that your intuition and maybe a few select people that you really value their opinion are really all that you need to listen to. So don't feel like you need to take into account everyone else's opinions and everyone else's needs and desires and everyone else's vision of your future. What is your vision of your future? And if you need to check in with someone, do just the nearest and dearest that you really check their intuition. I always like to do a practice, even when I'm thinking of asking someone I love and respect and admire their opinion. I take a moment and I sit with it, because sometimes it's not the right moment for that person to give you the perfect advice. Sometimes they're not the right person to give you advice. So trust your intuition, but if you are going to seek out outside advice, do it with a trusted inner circle. And even when you think that they're a trusted inner circle that you want to reach out to, give yourself just a couple moments to sit down and breathe into, how do I feel about asking this person right now in this moment? And if there's any anxiety or any sort of like hesitation that comes up, it may not be the right time or the right person for that question. And then you can kind of do that with different parts of your life. If you're looking for advice, I just recently did this past week. There was something going on in my life that I needed a second opinion on. And I had a couple different, more intuitively leaning friends that I could have reached out to. And I had to kind of sit and breathe into each one of my options. And it wasn't that like one of them's more intuitive or a better person than the other ones. It was just that one person was going to be more aligned with the inner answer that I needed than the other ones that I was kind of considering. So trust your intuition in that regard as well. Like trust your intuition in your actions, but also trust your intuition whenever you're looking for someone to give you a second opinion or give you some advice, because it is something that does change and transform from moment to moment. The person that I ask advice to that ended up giving me the perfect advice for the moment could have been someone that the day before or 5 days later would have been the wrong person to ask because of whatever had happened in their life and what was going on in their vibration. So trust that intuition. There's a very loud plane flying overhead. So if you can hear that, that is a sign that you're supposed to pay extra attention to this part of the reading. Okay, moving into Sunday, August 24th, we have the Sun square Uranus. And again, squares can be a little combative, a little more difficult. The Sun is our sense of identity. Uranus is a sense of change, and like change on like a sort of like global transformative level. So sort of revolution energy. So your energy and the energy that the outside world is kind of bringing in as like the time of change might be in conflict. The thing that's coming forward right now would be like, there might be a lot of people's opinions saying that you need to integrate AI into your business. And you're like, that doesn't feel right for me. Or something to that degree. Or it could be that it feels like the way that you want to create change in the world feels in conflict with your own sense of self and identity. And that could go one of two ways if that's the case. It could be that you're just catching up to it in your confidence. It could be that is the way that you're supposed to create change, whatever it is that's coming forward for you. And your sense of self is just catching up with that new vision. Or it could be that there's another way to create that same change. Like maybe you've been told that this is the only way to do it. And your sense of self is like, no, that doesn't feel right for me. And it's because there is another option for you. So stay open to trusting your intuition on Sunday on regards to whatever it is that you're trying to change or create transformation in the world. And then Uranus is currently in Gemini. So you might check where Gemini is in your houses. And then the sun is in Virgo. So those two areas might be feeling like they're sort of like change and self fighting against one another as well. We had 2 cards come out for Sunday, and I take them both, and they are both upright. So I believe our 7 of Wands, when I pulled it out, was reversed or upright. You'll have to look back on the video and see. But these are definitely upright because they're still sitting in the position that I laid them out. So they're either the 2nd and 3rd or the 3rd and 4th. But I think they're the 2nd and 3rd upright ones because it was a lot of reverse energy this week. We have the Ace of Cups, which is a sense of like creative energy that feels new and fresh and a little uncertain, but still exciting. And then, or love that feels those way. And then Ace of Wands, which is a new, fresh passion. So the cards are giving you really good energy to bounce away from this Sun square Uranus. And the Sun square Uranus happens at 2:14 a.m. Central Standard Time. So it is in the morning hours. Maybe you'll just sleep through it and you'll wake up feeling renewed and ready to like get started on something that really feels in alignment for you. This does kind of lean more towards the storyline that I was saying, that the way that you want to create change in the world doesn't resonate with you yet because you're still growing into that change. Because the page in any of the suits is about feeling like an apprentice, a beginner, not really feeling like an expert just yet, but being eager to learn. And so I think that there's definitely, especially if the way that you like to create change in the world has to do with art and beauty and creativity or trusting your intuition, that's what Page of Cups is getting us sort of dipping our toe into the waters and getting more acquainted with that part of ourselves. But I do think that there's a passionate drive towards something. So and again, that's kind of what we're doing. Like when we talk about wanting to create change in the world, hopefully it's something that you feel passionate about. And it doesn't have to be some big global issue. It can be if that's what you feel called towards. Or it could be that you're just like, hey, I have this art thing that I want to create that's different from what anyone else has created. But that's actually a really great metaphor. Let me pause and say that. It's very much like the energy of an artist. And if you're an artist in any field, you know this energy where you have an idea that you feel like your skill set hasn't caught up to yet. And this is something across the board that you'll hear every creative say, that you have these really brilliant ideas that your intuition drops into your brain and you start to try and execute them. And for a while, they're really hard because you're still fine-tuning that skill and you know how great it could be in your mind, but you're like, how do I get my physical form to catch up? It's particularly true for people that do like actual physical art, like drawing or painting. You'll be like, I know how good this can look, but my skill set isn't there yet. A great example of this is the Total Body Goddess deck. If you're not familiar, I have a 90s themed goddess deck that I created. And the first edition is for sale on my website. And I've actually created a second edition now that I'm looking into printing or funding or getting published. And while I still love the first edition and there's a couple copies available if you still want it, it's the only chance to get the coloring guidebook that comes with it. So if you like coloring books, go for that. But the second edition, I went through and redid a lot of the designs for the cards because my skill set had grown. So the first edition is the best I could possibly do in that moment, and I'm still super proud of it. But my vision and my skill set weren't quite on the same level yet. Whereas the second edition that I'm currently trying to get out into the world was very much in alignment, that I felt like my skill set and the thing that I pictured in my mind were more cohesive. So that's the energy of Sunday. You may not have your skill set that you've developed enough to catch up with the passion and the vision that you have for yourself, but it will get there. So follow the passion, keep plugging along, let it be whatever it needs to be as you transform and as you grow your skills, and keep showing up for whatever creative practice it is that you're feeling called towards, because ultimately that's going to create the change that you want to see. So maybe your Uranus energy on Sunday is about not necessarily global change, but change within your abilities to create and do and share the things in the world that you want to share. That is our weekly reading. So up next, we have our personal reading draw. But if you are not a paid subscriber and you didn't tip your reader this week, know that you can still stick around. This might still resonate in places for you, so use your intuition. If you want to become a paid subscriber or tip your reader to get on next week's reading list, you can check the links below. And I'm going to go ahead and give a little thank you for everyone that is involved in the reading. So I just have like a little random name generator that we spin the wheel to see who won. The rule is that if you won the previous week's reading, you're not included on the wheel the week after, just so that we give you a little break so that other people can win as well. So Francis, you won last week's reading. You're not on this week's reading, but I do want to express my gratitude for you being a paid subscriber. Other paid subscribers that I would like to give a shout out and thank you to are Holly, Amanda, Jane, Tracy, Sonia, and Caitlin. Thank you so much for being a regular source of support for this channel. I so appreciate it. And I also love giving you an opportunity to win these readings. And then I want to do an additional thank you for the support for Kelly, who's included on the wheel this week. And we're going to see who wins the random draw. Kelly, congratulations on winning the random draw. I happen to know that this is the week before Kelly's birthday, so it feels very fitting that you won the personal reading. So we're going to dive into the cards, and I'm actually feeling called. I'm kind of feeling called to a new deck, and I'm kind of feeling called to the deck that we use for the weekly reading. I'm feeling more pulled to the new deck. So I pulled a different deck than I usually pull for my second option this week. And it's the Holly Simple Tarot. So there's going to be something about these designs that I feel like are important. And they're very sort of like, they actually kind of go along really well with Sunday's message of like, do your art even when you feel like your skill hasn't caught up with it. That's not to say that this artist isn't super skilled and this isn't exactly what they wanted for this, but their style of art is a little more crude, I think purposely. And so it could feel like it represents someone who's trying to develop a skill set to be a little more realistic in their art, and it's just not there. So that might be a message that's coming through really strongly for you. And we're going to shuffle up the cards, and we're just going to pull a past, present, future reading. Oh, I've got one that's already flipped over. Okay, no, that's the cheat card for knowing what the meanings of all of the ones in the deck are. So let's see. This deck and I are getting reacquainted. I haven't pulled her out in a while. So there was definitely something about this that was going to be resonant. So we've got a past and a present. And I don't think I dropped any more. So let's get the future card and I will go through all of those. Oh, we got a future card that like jumped out. Okay. So recent past energy, or the past energy that's relevant for this reading for Kelly or for anyone who decided to watch to see if there's any energy that you want to piggyback off on this reading, is the Five of Cups reversed. So the reverse energy feels like we're coming out of this energy of the Five of Cups. And the Five of Cups can be an energy of looking towards what's going wrong in a situation versus what's going right. So I'm actually going to continue with the metaphor of like skill sets and developing in an artistic field or developing in a project that you're working on. And this feels like you've done a lot of work recently where you may have formerly been a little more hard on yourself, of the sort of Virgo energy perfectionism of wanting everything to be perfect and being frustrated that it's not coming out perfect because your skill set is still catching up with your vision. And you're learning to flip that perspective. You're learning to look more at what's going right than what's going wrong. So if we look at this card design literally, when it's upright, 4 cups are spilling out. And that feels really daunting that only one cup is upright. But when it comes out reverse, that means that we're learning to look more at what could be going upright than what's going upside down, because there are more cards that are in this orientation in an upright position than the ones that are spilling out the liquid. It also has kind of this other like mystical element to it that like now that we're flipping our perspective, it's like the liquid can become weightless and it becomes a little more effortless when you start to notice what's actually going right in the development of your skill and the development of your art and the practices that you're moving towards. So I really like this visual. And I think there's part of the reason why I was called to this deck for this reading, because it does feel like it's like, now that you've learned that you don't need to look at everything that's going wrong, you can look at what's going right, things are become a lot lighter and a lot easier and a lot more effortless. So keep following that thread. The current energy I love is the 9 of Cups. So the 9 of Cups is a wishes fulfilled card. So this feels very appropriate for a pre-birthday energy. This is kind of like a blow out the candles on your cake, make a wish type thing, in that your energy is kind of primed right now to call in some really groovy stuff that you want. So again, use the Virgo new moon energy to your advantage, as long as I haven't put down below that it is an eclipse and you shouldn't manifest with it, which again will be in all caps if that's the case. But I'm pretty sure it's safe to manifest on the Virgo new moon. So if that's the case, use it as like sort of like a pre-birthday wish list. And really recognize that your energy can really be in alignment because you've started looking at the positive aspects of things in your life rather than the negative aspects to call in more of what it is that you want. So yeah, like I said, this is blowing out the candles on the cake energy. Like allow yourself to have that sort of magical inner child thinking of like the next like 7 days, couple weeks in your life is primed for just like making a wish and letting it come to you, because that's what this energy is. This energy can also be very much like recognizing your own personal magic. Sometimes the 9s can be more like individually driven cards. So like the 9 of Pentacles and the 9 of Cups are both more like finding happiness and success and contentment and abundance on your own, rather than having to rely on other people or partnerships or anything like that to have that energy. That doesn't mean that other people aren't involved, but it's like you're fully primed to be able to do this on your own. So this also kind of gives me a little trickle of a message that's like, there's something in this creative practice that you can kind of branch out on your own a little bit more, because you have developed the skill set and because you have this like wish come true energy that's around you right now. So take a leap with something with that, if that calls to you. The future card is coming in with the Father of Pentacles reversed. So this does tell me that as you're moving through this really magical present moment and you're calling in these wishes, know that sometimes creating the skill set that you want for the things that you want to create, making wishes and waiting for them to arrive can feel a little daunting to the more grounded, practical aspects of your life, which Virgos can be very concerned about. So this is an energy of not needing to know where all the abundance is coming from, needing to know what the next step on the agenda is, really releasing the idea that you need to have the entire thing mapped out before you take action on something. I think that the map is your intuition. And sometimes the intuition either gives you the steps one at a time, or they kind of hold that like answer key on the map. Is it called a key? I think it's called a map key. They hold that a little bit ransom. So it's like you might get the full map, but you don't know what all the symbols mean. And so this is kind of trusting the process, that as you develop your skill set and as you start like trusting this, like my wishes can come true energy, you'll slowly start to understand what those symbols on that map mean. And it'll make much more sense retrospectively. So again, this is very much like anything that's like a more practical planner, money-based energy, earthly energy. You might need to release a little bit of that, turn it on its head, and be like, I'm going to stick a little more to the intuition as opposed to the physical planning of things. Underneath the deck, let's take a peek. We have the Mother of Swords. So there is an energy that while you're going through this process, your boundaries are still key. So you're going to be very fluid with the energy. You're going to have lots of fun. You're going to celebrate. You're going to make some wishes. You're going to trust your intuition, but you're also going to recognize that there are certain people in your life that just don't need to be around you during this transformation. So this actually feels very similar to like what they say to creatives a lot of time, that like when you're planning out or developing an idea and it's just started, you want to be really careful about either not sharing it with other people or only sharing it with people that you know are going to be supportive. So this feels like your boundaries need to be really strict in regards to the things that you're creating so that the outside world doesn't give you that sort of like negative energy and kind of take the wind out of your sails. So kind of nurture your ideas until they feel strong enough to withhold any of the outside criticism and be okay with, again, I talked about it earlier, like only consulting the people that your intuition and your gut feeling tells you are the right people to give you feedback in that moment. And knowing that it might be different from day to day as to who's going to be the right person. I love that for you. Happy Virgo season. Congratulations on the reading win on the first time on the wheel. And actually, that's a great example of the wish come true energy. And have a great rest of your week. Thank you for your support. And I will see whoever's still watching in next week's reading.